Vodka is one of the most popular and consumed alcoholic beverages worldwide, present in bars, parties, and celebrations of all kinds. But do you really know how this crystalline and apparently simple beverage is produced? The vodka manufacturing process is much more complex and fascinating than most people imagine, involving multiple stages of chemical transformation, sophisticated distillation, and rigorous purification. And most importantly, one of the great challenges of vodka production is ensuring that the final product is free from methanol, an extremely toxic substance that can cause blindness and even death. Let's unravel this entire industrial process that transforms grains, potatoes, or other ingredients into one of the purest and most neutral beverages that exists. The word vodka comes from Russian and literally means little water, the diminutive of water. This nomenclature is not by chance. Genuine vodka should be so pure and neutral that it resembles water in appearance, being completely colorless and transparent. But achieving this level of purity requires an extremely sophisticated industrial process that has been refined over centuries. Vodka emerged in Eastern Europe in the 14th century, with its exact origin disputed between Russia and Poland. Historical records show that the word wodka in Polish can be traced back to 1405, initially referring to alcohol-based medicines and cosmetics derived from frozen wine. In Russia, the monk Isidore created a recipe for the first Russian vodka in 1430. The vodka production process begins with the selection of raw materials. Unlike what many people think, vodka doesn't necessarily have to be made from potatoes. In fact, only about 3% of vodka sold worldwide is made from potatoes. The overwhelming majority is produced from grains such as wheat, rye, barley, corn, buckwheat, or even rice. Each raw material imparts subtly different characteristics to the final product. Wheat creates a distillate with subtle notes of biscuit and a hint of anise. Rye produces a vodka with a more robust and earthy character. Potatoes result in a creamier and fuller-bodied texture. Besides these traditional ingredients, vodka can also be produced from beet molasses, fruits, or practically anything that ferments to produce alcohol. The first real stage of the production process is milling. The grains are harvested and crushed to break them into smaller particles. When grains are harvested, they contain mainly starch, which cannot be fermented directly by microorganisms. The starch first needs to be converted into simple sugars that yeasts can consume. This is where malting comes in, a process where crushed grains are mixed with hot water to create what we call wort, a sugary mixture. During malting, natural enzymes present in the grains or externally added enzymes, such as amylase, break down the long starch chains into simpler sugars like glucose and maltose. This enzymatic conversion is absolutely crucial because without it, there would be no sugars to ferment and consequently no alcohol. After malting, the sugary wort moves to the fermentation stage, which is where the magic really begins to happen. The wort is transferred to large, hermetically sealed fermentation tanks, creating an anaerobic environment that is without oxygen. It's fundamental that no oxygen is present because alcoholic fermentation occurs only in the absence of oxygen. If oxygen is present, the microorganisms would produce mainly acetic acid, vinegar, instead of alcohol. Specialized yeasts, generally of the species Saccharomyces cerevisiae, are added to the wort. These yeasts are fascinating microorganisms that consume the sugars present in the wort and transform them into ethanol, which is the ethyl alcohol we want, plus carbon dioxide and heat as byproducts. Fermentation typically lasts between 2 to 5 days, depending on temperature, the type of yeast used, and the sugar concentration in the wort. During this period, the liquid constantly bubbles due to the carbon dioxide being released. The temperature needs to be carefully controlled because very high temperatures can kill the yeasts, while very low temperatures make the process excessively slow. At the end of fermentation, we obtain a liquid with relatively low alcohol content, generally between 6 and 8%, similar to beer. This fermented liquid still contains many impurities, including dead yeast remnants, unconverted proteins, oils, and crucially, various types of alcohols besides the desired ethanol. This is where we arrive at the most critical and sophisticated stage of all vodka production, distillation. Distillation is the process that separates ethanol from impurities in water, concentrating the alcohol and purifying the beverage. The basic principle of distillation is surprisingly simple. Different liquids have different boiling points. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, while ethanol boils at 78 degrees Celsius. Methanol, the toxic substance we need to eliminate, boils at 64 degrees Celsius. These different boiling points allow components to be separated through controlled heating. The fermented liquid is placed in a distillation apparatus, traditionally called a still. There are two main types of stills used in vodka production. Pot stills, which are more traditional and produce distillates with more character and flavor, and continuous column stills, which are more modern and efficient, producing extremely pure and neutral alcohol. For high-quality vodka, especially the neutral style that dominates the market, continuous column stills with multiple columns are used, reaching up to 5 interconnected columns. When the fermented liquid is heated in the still, vapors begin to rise. The first vapors to emerge are the lightest, with the lowest boiling points. This first fraction is called the heads of distillation and contains mainly methanol, acetaldehyde, and other highly undesirable and toxic volatile compounds. Methanol is particularly dangerous because even small amounts can cause permanent blindness, and larger doses are lethal. That's why professional distillers always completely discard the heads of distillation. This initial fraction represents approximately the first 5% of the total volume. After the heads comes the hearts of distillation, which contains mainly pure ethanol with very few impurities. This is the fraction we want to collect to make vodka. The hearts of distillation represents approximately 60 to 70% of the total volume and is rich in ethanol, with concentration that can reach 90% or more after multiple distillations. Experienced distillers identify when the transition from heads to hearts occurs through temperature measurements and distillate quality tests. The transition isn't abrupt, but gradual, so it requires skill and experience to maximize collection of the hearts while avoiding contamination with the heads. The last fraction is called tails and contains heavier alcohols, fusel oils, and other compounds with higher boiling points. These compounds give undesirable flavors and aromas to vodka and are also discarded or, in some distilleries, recycled for a new round of distillation. The tails represent the last 20 to 30% of the volume. Only the hearts are kept for quality vodka production. But a single distillation isn't enough to produce premium vodka. The distillation process is repeated multiple times, generally between 2 to 5 times. Each successive distillation increases the purity and alcohol concentration of the distillate. After 2 or 3 distillations, the liquid already has alcohol content above 90%, but may still contain traces of impurities. That's why high-quality vodkas go through 4 or even 5 distillations. Some premium brands make a point of highlighting on the label that their vodka was distilled 5, 6, or even 7 times, using this as a marketing argument to indicate superior purity. After each distillation, only the hearts are collected, making the final product progressively purer. But distillation alone isn't enough to produce the crystalline and neutral vodka we know. After distillation comes the rectification stage, an additional purification process that occurs in specialized columns called rectifiers. The rectifier has the function of removing residual impurities that survived distillation, including last traces of methanol, fusel oils, acetaldehydes, and other undesirable congeners. Modern rectifiers use multiple plates where vapors rise and condense repeatedly, each plate acting as a mini distillation. Heavier compounds condense on the lower plates, while pure ethanol concentrates on the upper plates. Legal requirements for vodka production are rigorous, specifically regarding purity. In the United States, vodka must be distilled to at least 95% alcohol by volume. In the European Union, the requirement is even stricter, requiring 96% alcohol by volume. Additionally, the EU establishes a maximum methanol level of only 10 grams per 100 liters of pure vodka, ensuring that the final product is safe for consumption. These regulations exist precisely because methanol in alcoholic beverages is extremely dangerous and has caused countless tragedies throughout history. After distillation and rectification, we have a liquid with extremely high alcohol content, generally around 90 to 95%. Obviously, this is too strong for direct consumption. This highly concentrated alcohol is then diluted with pure water to reach the desired commercial alcohol content, which generally stays between 35 to 40%. although some premium vodkas can have up to 50